Well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you're doing well. This morning, Friday, the 3rd of April. Hard to believe that it's day 8 of our lockdown already. Or, well, for me, it's hard to believe that we had 8 days of lockdown already. And I've really just been thinking and praying. Um, and so, one of the things that's really stood out for me was what we spoke about in Esther 2 days ago, and I had last had the privilege of sharing with you, was that phrase, for just a time as this. And it got me thinking about some of the other guys that we've looked at. So we're looking at Peter walking on the water. We look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego getting thrown into the furnace and being able to say to King Nebuchadnezzar, we will never bow down to you, but the God that we love and serve is able to save us, and even if he doesn't, we will continue to worship him. So they were ready for such a time as this. Then obviously there was Esther having to go before the king, ready for such a time as this. And it got me thinking, what about the day that we live in? Because when we're honest with ourselves, we need to realize that things have changed drastically. I don't know if any of you have ventured out. So I had to go do some shopping. I might have said this for Helen the other day. And it was interesting just to see the reactions of people going into the local spa. And we realized things there have changed. And I know when we come back, it's I think in our human nature that we kind of expect life just to go back to however it was. But I don't think it will. I think that what is happening, we've realized on a global level that the world that we live in has changed drastically. And let's just think of that on a micro level. The country that we live in has changed drastically. That things have changed astronomically just in the short 8 days that we've been stuck in home. For some of us, it's been a great time just to reconnect with people, to reconnect with our loved ones, and to reconnect with God. And I'm sure for others, you're starting to feel a little bit star crazy in terms of actually you just want to go out, you just want to do something. I know for me, I'm kind of still thinking, can I actually throw a fishing rod after being stuck in lockdown for 21 days? But I think what we need to realize more importantly is that the way we do things afterwards is going to change drastically. That this is one of those events that is going to change the world as we know it. And not only just change the world, but I think change the church. And when I refer to the church, because I'm talking to the church globally, that I think things have changed drastically. And we've seen how many churches have had to start doing things that were way outside their comfort zone. How many churches had the mindset that, oh, we just have older people in our church, so we can't do anything in terms of with technology. Now, I'm not saying we've got to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we need to realize that there's a whole new world out there. I'm having a look. I've already been involved in meetings over Zoom. Absolutely amazing. We had a meeting just the other day with a whole bunch of youth pastors in terms of how do we actually go forward in youth ministry during lockdown and post lockdown. And we had that meeting over Zoom, over technology. And so it got me thinking as well, just something that I say every now and again is that at times we need to look at how we present the gospel. So we need to change the way we present the gospel, but never change the core message of the gospel. What am I saying? So when you think about it, 50 years ago, to have a gospel conversation with somebody using your cell phone was unheard of. Was what on earth is this person actually doing? What is a cell phone, let alone a gospel conversation? We go to church and we do things a certain way. Nowadays, there's apps to help you have gospel conversations. The core message has never ever changed. The way that we present it has. And that got me thinking to something that Jesus leaves with us. And I want to read this, and it's a verse that we all know, but there's some challenges that I've had around this verse, just in terms of how do we implement it going forward. And so it's from Matthew 28, and I want to read from verse 16. And let's just read this together. Then the 11 disciples left for Galilee, going to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some of them doubted. Jesus came and told his disciples, I've been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all commands I've given you, and be sure of this, I'm always with you, even to the end of the age. And so we see Jesus leaving us a very clear message here, a very clear instruction to go and make disciples of all nations. And I thought about that. How do we do that? And so I just have to look and see this action that we started from the pastor's desk. Last I looked, the group we had plus minus 150 people in the group, and we're just sharing daily devotional messages on having hope and keeping faith. But when we think about it, I know that I've got more than 150 contacts in my phone. I know on Facebook and on social media, there's more than 150 people that I have access to, that I have some form of say into. And that got me thinking, how many of those people have I been sharing the gospel with? Now that I've got time, am I just sitting back and reading? Yes, it's good to read, don't get me wrong. Or am I actively going out and sharing hope with other people, not just with those in my close circle? And that got me thinking that there's times when we need to step out of our comfort zone. Peter got out of the boat. And that's weird to think about it, but the boat was Peter's comfort zone. The boat was what Peter was comfortable in. And he stepped out onto the stormy sea. Think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They got thrown into the fiery furnace. You see, they stepped out in faith. The order was given that they were to bow down and worship the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had made, and they were like, never. We will have faith in our God. Daniel had the same thing, getting thrown into the lion's den. Think about Paul. Here Paul is, and he has this amazing encounter with God on the Damascus Road, to the point that his life changed, to the point that wherever he went, he shared the gospel. He shared Christ's message with absolutely everybody any way that he could. Getting to the point, as we've said this before, where Paul would say, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And we often think about that and going, yes, but we're not called to share the gospel. And I'd have to disagree, because I fully believe that everybody is called to a lifestyle of full-time ministry and to full-time evangelism. Maybe not everybody's called to a life of it, but everybody's called to a lifestyle of always sharing the gospel. And we often think about that, but how do we do that in difficult times, such as the times that we're going through? And 9 times out of 10, all we need to do is just be that voice. And so a phrase that I love as well is when Edmund Burke says, the only way for triumph is when good men do nothing. And we think about what is happening in the world at the moment. The only way that hopelessness, the only way that despair, the only way that fake news is going to spread and going to continue is if good men and women do nothing. And that got me thinking, but actually it's difficult. It's hard. How can we do that? And sometimes it's just something as small as saying, hey, listen, have you checked that out? This is fake news. We've seen people saying, hey, I just forward the stuff that I get forwarded on, and realizing just because you forwarded and you then kind of saying that actually I agree with this. But what I really wanted to share this morning and kind of just to highlight is that yes, while we've all been called to this lifestyle, and yes, while we need to share the gospel, and yes, while it's going to be difficult, we get so caught up in the trials of life that we kind of going, actually, I can't do this. I'm sinking. Maybe we feel like Peter, we've gotten out the boat and we're walking in faith, but we're sinking fast. And actually, the world around us seems too big. It seems too much to comprehend. But listen to the last line that Jesus said to disciples before he ascended into heaven. And often we kind of miss out on this. Often for some reason we don't register it. And be sure of this. So be certain of this. Understand this. Know this for a fact. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. And isn't it amazing to know that, yes, well, God has called us to be different. God has called us to be lighthouses in the world. He says to us, Jesus says to us, and be sure of this, be certain, 100% certain, that I am with you always to the end of the age. And that got me thinking that actually God is just calling us to be little lighthouses. And he's not asking us to do it by ourselves. Jesus is there with us, always to the end of the age. And when we think about that, if Jesus has got my back, then actually who can go be against me? If Jesus has got my back, then actually nothing formed can stand against me. And I wanted to challenge us all this morning, that while we're going through this time, How many times have you shared the gospel with people, whether it's over a phone call, whether it's over a message, or things like that? How have you shared the gospel? How have you stepped out of your comfort zone to be a lighthouse, to be a promise maker, to be a world changer during this time, realizing that Jesus is always with us, no matter what?